I used to think raising kids was all about passing down love, simple as that. But now, at 66, I've learned the hard truth. Sometimes raising kids just means training for the day you'll have to protect yourself from them. That thought sat in my chest like a dull needle, small but always there. My daughter-in-law, Megan, never bothered to call or text. One day she just showed up with her parents from a little town in upstate Illinois and moved them right into what used to be my master bedroom. She smiled like it was some kind of gift and said it like she was commenting on the weather. "Mom, we'll have you move into the guest room. My parents are getting older, their joints are bad. The master's got better light, it's healthier for them." I stood in the middle of the living room, the same one I helped pay for, and felt like a stranger in my own home. The sunlight spilled through the tall windows, soft and golden, but it couldn't touch the cold rising inside me. I looked toward my old bedroom, my sanctuary, and saw the door wide open, the space cluttered with cheap luggage and loud, mismatched bedding. Then my eyes shifted to the so-called guest room. Furniture shoved to the corners and my late husband's old wicker chair jammed up against the wall like it might snap in two. Inch by inch my heart dropped. There was no space left for me, not in that house, not in their plans. But I didn't yell. I didn't cry. What would have been the point? Arguing with Megan was like shouting into the wind. And my son Jason, he followed her lead in everything. If I called him out, he'd just feel embarrassed and then I'd be the villain. So while the four of them snoozed peacefully on the sectional that afternoon, I quietly packed a small suitcase. They probably figured I was just pouting and heading to my sister Carol's for a few days, that I'd cool off and come back ready to slip back into my role. Nanny, housekeeper, emergency wallet. What a joke. My name's Linda Hayes. I'm a retired middle school art teacher, and I've spent decades teaching kids about boundaries, structure, and respect. Did they really think I'd be easy to bulldoze? They had no idea who they were messing with. The very day I walked out, I called my lawyer. What they don't know is I've already started the paperwork to sell the house. My husband passed from illness a few years back, and after that it was just me and Jason. I could have stayed alone, lived quietly, but I thought moving in with them would help. I could look after their boy Mason, cook, clean, keep the place running. I carried that household on my back. It was exhausting, but outwardly we kept things polite. Megan and I could still exchange small talk, but the peace was always fragile. She was young, pretty, and sweet-talking. Every compliment she gave came with a string attached. She switched out designer purses like the seasons. Gucci today, Coach tomorrow, and she saw her stylist more than her grocery store. Most of their bills came from Jason's and my paychecks. Megan always acted respectful, but I saw it. The little flash of contempt in her eyes, just enough to cut. At dinner she'd flash a smile and say, "Linda, the food's a little salty. We're trying low sodium, low fat now. It's better for us." And then she'd turn around and order Mason a bucket of fried chicken and fries. She'd pick up my reading glasses from the couch, twirl them like a prop, and laugh, "These are ancient. Someday I'll take you to get something cuter." Of course, someday never came. I kept swallowing it all just to keep the peace. I didn't want Jason caught in the middle. And that house, the one with 3 bedrooms, we bought it with the money my husband and I saved over a lifetime. And the deed? It's in my name, Linda Hayes. When Jason first got married, I knew they were struggling financially. So when they asked to move in, I said yes. I thought living together, 3 generations under one roof, might even be a blessing. We could support each other, share dinner, raise Mason together. I never asked for rent, and I usually covered the utilities with my retirement check. I really thought all my giving, all my sacrifices, would earn some kind of respect. Maybe even a little gratitude. But about a month ago, Megan started dropping hints about her parents. Just casual mentions, nothing direct. One evening she stirred her soup and said, "Linda, my parents' place is falling apart. Freezing in winter, a swamp in the summer." Then she added without even looking up, "And my dad's got rheumatism. The damp air really messes with him. And the doctors out there? Don't even ask." Then came the real message wrapped in fluff. "I was thinking maybe they could stay with us a while. New environment might help." She said it like she was chatting about changing the curtains. But my chest tightened. This house only has 3 bedrooms. Jason has 1, I have 1, and Mason has his own. Where exactly were they planning to squeeze in 2 more people? We were already tiptoeing around each other most days. Different routines, clashing habits, 3 generations trying to make it work under one roof. Add 2 more adults with their own schedules and health needs, and we'd be bumping into each other constantly. I tried to approach it gently. Megan, I understand you want to take care of your parents, I really do, but we're already pretty tight on space. Where would they sleep? And Lucas, I mean Mason, he's loud, always running around. I'm not sure this is the best environment for them. She didn't argue. Just gave me that tight-lipped smile, looked back down at her plate and chewed like I hadn't said a word. I figured maybe that was the end of it. But then not long after it happened. I'd just finished a creative writing class over at Oak Ridge Community College, stopped by the store to grab a few things, thinking maybe I'd make a proper dinner for once. When I opened the front door I froze. A pile of massive luggage filled the entryway. And from the living room I heard unfamiliar voices. Loud, cheerful, settling in like they'd always belonged. I slipped off my shoes and walked in slowly. On the couch sat two strangers. Older, comfortable, already assessing the place like they were trying to decide where the furniture should go. The man had weathered skin and salt and pepper hair. The woman wore a faded pink floral dress and looked at me like I was the guest. Megan's parents. I'd only seen them once years ago at Jason's wedding. Megan came bouncing out of the master bedroom the second she heard the door click. Her smile stretched unnaturally wide, like it had been rehearsed, and she looped her arm through mine like some overeager hostess. Linda. You're home. Come meet my parents, they're staying with us for a while. It'll be so much fun having everyone together. Then, as if she suddenly remembered something crucial, she added with that syrupy tone, "Oh, I already moved your things into the guest room. I figured the master would be better for my parents. They're light sleepers and it's quieter, and the balcony gets so much sun it's great for their health." This wasn't a discussion. It was an announcement. I didn't even look at her. My eyes drifted toward the master bedroom, the one I'd lived in for years, now partially shut. I could see the edge of my old vanity, crowded with someone else's perfume bottles and trinkets. My houseplants, ones I'd kept alive for 5 years, were shoved into a corner. In their place, plastic flowers bright and hollow. My books, photo albums, keepsakes from my late husband, all crammed into the so-called guest room like clutter someone was trying to hide before company arrived. Everything that had once made that house feel like mine. It had all been boxed up, dismissed, forgotten. Jason stood behind Megan, eyes darting to the floor, rubbing his hands like he was trying to wring the guilt out of them. He opened his mouth a few times then finally mumbled, Megan meant well. Meant well. What kind of kindness pushes someone out of their own room and hands it off to strangers with a grin? I felt cold all over, like someone had poured ice water straight down my spine. But at the same time this slow, burning anger rose inside me, sharp and steady like a poker pressed into my ribs. So I didn't yell. I took a breath long and deep. I knew better than to lose my temper. If I snapped, Megan would cry victim. Jason would retreat further into his shell. And I'd just look like the bitter old mother-in-law. I slipped my arm out of hers, looked her in the eyes and said flatly, "Got it." Then I turned and walked into the guest room. That door might as well have been a brick wall, the final boundary between me and whatever life I thought I had in that house. Outside, I could hear Megan and her mother laughing, their voices sharp and chirpy as they chatted about curtain colors, hanging chairs, and whether they should plant herbs on the balcony. As if that room had always been theirs. As if I'd never existed in it. Inside, chaos. My clothes dumped carelessly across the bed. My husband's favorite novels crushed beneath a tangle of wrinkled shirts, their pages bent and curling. A photo frame lay face down on the floor, one corner of the glass cracked. In it, he and I were standing in the sunshine, young again, his smile as warm as spring. I didn't cry. I just felt myself breaking apart. Quiet, invisible. Jason came in behind me, hovering near the door like a scolded boy. "Mom, please don't take it the wrong way. Megan didn't mean anything by it," he said, his voice low and hesitant. I didn't look at him. Just said softly, "You don't need to explain. I understand." And I did. I saw it all clearly now. Megan's little schemes, her total disregard for me, the woman who owned that house. And Jason, my son. So spineless. So afraid to speak up. He didn't protect me. He didn't set a boundary. He couldn't even say the one thing I needed to hear. The real heartbreak wasn't losing my room. It was watching my own son stand there and let it happen. Something inside me just shut off. Done. It's not that I didn't know how to speak up, how to fight for myself. I just didn't have the heart anymore. Because when your heart breaks a little too many times, so does your will to keep struggling. The biggest distance in the world isn't death. It's when your own child can't look at you and say, "Mom, this is your home." That same afternoon, Megan took her parents out to stroll the neighborhood and stock up at Costco, smiling like she'd just won a prize. Jason didn't say where he was going, but I pictured him hiding out at some coffee shop, too cowardly to face the tension. I closed the bedroom door, took a breath, and started packing. I didn't need much. Just the essentials. My ID, a few documents, some jewelry, and that one photo in the cracked frame. I wrapped it in a towel and set it gently at the bottom of my suitcase. I left behind the rest. Clothes, toiletries, let them keep it. They had no clue what was about to hit. Then I grabbed my phone and called my sister. "Carol, can I ask a favor?" I kept my voice light. "You remember that cleaning service you mentioned a while back? Do you still have their number? I'm thinking of moving back to the old place in Bayview, and it needs a good clean before I do." She paused just a beat before she asked, gentle but worried, "Linda, are you okay? Did Megan say something again? Did something happen?" "Nothing serious," I said. "I just need a quieter place." And that was all I said. No point in dragging Carol into the mess. Sometimes silence is kinder than truth. After we hung up, I called the cleaning company and booked them for the next day. With everything arranged, I zipped up my suitcase, stepped out into the living room, and there they were, Megan and her parents, just getting back from their shopping spree, arms full of snacks and fruit. Megan froze for half a second when she saw me with the suitcase, then beamed like a game show host. "Linda, going on a little getaway? Off to stay with Carol?" Her voice was sweet, but her eyes, those eyes told the real story. I saw that flash of triumph, like she'd finally won. He thought I was sulking. That I'd go cool off, come crawling back in a few days, tail tucked, ready to pick up right where I left off. Cooking, babysitting, staying quiet. What a joke. I didn't say a word. Just bent down and changed my shoes. "Mom, are you really leaving?" Jason's voice startled me. I hadn't even noticed him walk in. He moved toward me, half reached out, until Megan shot him one of her signature looks. Just like that, he froze. Stuck. Like he couldn't choose which side he was on. In her eyes, I saw nothing but contempt and confidence. "Where do you think you'll go?" her silence said. "You've got no money, no support. You'll be back. And when you are, we'll decide what scraps you get." I almost laughed. People like her don't stop unless you make them. You give them a step, they take the whole road, and before you know it, you're pushed off the edge. I didn't waste words. I didn't perform hurt. I opened the door and stepped out with just one sentence. "I'm going back to my own home. You can manage from here." Then I shut the door behind me. And that was that. Megan's brittle smile and Jason's useless guilt stayed locked inside. Outside, the cab was already waiting. I slid into the back seat, and as we drove off, the streetlights blurred past, soft and steady. I didn't feel sad. Not even close. What I felt was something light. Freeing. Like I'd finally put down a weight I'd been dragging for years. When a heart's been broken long enough, there's nothing left to break. Eventually, pain stops bringing tears. It just brings clarity. This wasn't me running away. This was me waking up. The house I was returning to sat in a quiet, older neighborhood on the west side of Bayview, part of a housing program from back when I was teaching. Later, I bought it outright. It wasn't big, 2 bedrooms, 1 bath, but it was mine. Every inch of it. Sure, no one had lived there in years. Dust everywhere, air thick with that stale, shut-in smell. But I didn't care. It was still home. The next day, the cleaning crew showed up right on time. They scrubbed every inch, wiped down the walls, vacuumed the corners, cleared out years of stillness. I threw open every window and let the sun pour in, chasing away the shadows. The furniture was all still there, quiet and familiar. A little dated, a little scratched, but each mark carried a story. A memory. I sat up slowly. Put my husband's photo back on the nightstand. Moved the orchid, the one they'd shoved in the corner, out onto the balcony where it could soak up light. And just like that, I felt like I belonged again. I signed up for an oil painting class at the local college, something I'd always wanted to do. I called a few retired friends. We made plans. Morning walks, coffee dates, real laughter. The kind that doesn't come with strings attached. Even the air felt cleaner. My body lighter. At night, I'd drink chamomile tea, watch old movies, or pick up that book I never finished. And for the first time in years, I slept through the night. The insomnia, the weight in my chest. It faded. In those first few days, Jason called a couple of times. His voice sounded like a nervous kid testing boundaries. Mom, you doing okay over there? When do you think you'll come back for a visit? My answer was calm. Thought, I'm doing just fine in my own home. Every time I ended a phone call with the same firm words, take good care of Mason, it landed like a closed door. I said it once, then twice, then again. And slowly Jason started to get the message. Or maybe Megan gave him that look she always used when she wanted him to fall in line. Either way, the call slowed, then stopped. Eventually, all that remained were hollow holiday texts. Happy Thanksgiving, Mom. Or the occasional, how's your health? And honestly, I didn't miss it. I used to think happiness in old age came from seeing your children happy, that their comfort was your reward. But I've learned real peace is something else. Having your own money, your own silence, your own space, and freedom from people who think they're entitled to you. This little house brought me that peace. Stillness. And stillness had never felt so good. Megan, on the other hand, clearly wasn't adjusting. Her whole scheme had been built on the idea that I'd fall apart, that loneliness, stress, and minor inconveniences would drive me back, desperate to reclaim my place. But weeks passed. I didn't beg. I didn't break. I didn't even ask for anything. Her trap snapped shut on empty air. First, she sent Jason to try a soft approach, full of guilt and fake warmth. I stayed calm, steady. Then, eventually, she called me herself. The moment I picked up, I heard it, that breathy, syrupy tone she used when trying to play sweet. Linda, we're just a little worried about you, living alone and all. Mason asks about you every day. I gave her a quiet, non-committal answer. Nothing more. That pause on the other end told me she heard it loud and clear. Then her voice shifted, just a little, a thread of impatience creeping in. Ever since my parents moved in, our expenses have gone way up. When you were here, at least you helped out. But now you're living alone, nice and easy, while we're over here drowning. And there was the tail of the fox slipping out from under the curtain. She kept it soft, but the aim was clear. My dad needs long-term therapy, and Mason's music teacher wants tuition by next week. It's been really tight. I listened, lips curled slightly because I knew what she was circling. Money. My voice stayed flat. Is that so? Sounds like it's time you both sat down and made a real budget. Silence. I'd caught her off guard. She stammered. No, I mean, you've got a good retirement income, right? Maybe just for now? We're family, Linda. We're supposed to look out for each other. Family. I repeated the word slowly. Funny. Because the day your parents moved in, I was the one forced out of my bedroom. My things tossed in a closet. And I remember you smiling while you said, the master's better for the elderly. I didn't sugarcoat it. Megan, my pension comes from decades of hard work. It's for me. You two made your choices. Now live with them. Don't come knocking on my door to cover your consequences. And before she could respond, I ended the call. Exhaled. For them, I hadn't been a mother. I'd been a resource. Always available, always agreeable, always expected to give. But that machine. It was shut down. Permanently. And when sweet talk failed, Megan shifted to what she does best. Manipulation. A few days later, the calls started. First was Jason's aunt, preaching like a Sunday sermon. Linda, I heard you stormed out. What are you thinking, living alone at your age? Jason and Megan are doing their best. You're the mother. Be the bigger person. Then came my niece, Katie, gentler, more hesitant. Aunt Linda. I heard what happened. Maybe Megan made some mistakes, but your family. Can't you talk it out? They meant well. Or maybe they didn't. Either way, the message was clear. I was being difficult. Selfish. At first, that old familiar knot tightened in my chest. Then it loosened. And I laughed, quiet and bitter. They'd all been fed Megan's version. No one asked for mine. They didn't want truth. They wanted me to play the role. The mother who forgives, forgets, and comes back quietly. I didn't argue. For those who sounded sincere, I just said, thanks for checking in. I'm doing just fine. Just needed space. But for the ones parroting Megan's script, I stopped pretending. She's struggling? So was I. She moved her parents into my home, into my bedroom, and now she wants my money too. If you believe she's a saint, feel free to pay her bills. Mine didn't fall from the sky. And one by one the calls stopped. Megan's PR campaign had flopped. But that little circus reminded me of something important. I couldn't afford to be reactive. Words matter, especially when someone else is twisting them behind your back. If Megan ever decided to go full manipulative, it wouldn't take much to poison more ears. So I got to work. Quietly, methodically. I pulled out my old phone, scrolled through months of texts from her, little digs, guilt trips, complaints about money. I took screenshots. Saved them all in a folder. Then I called an old neighbor still living near my Bayview house. We caught up, chatted, and I casually said, "Bet the place feels lively now that I'm gone, huh?" She didn't miss a beat. Dropped her voice to a whisper and told me everything. Megan had been venting about me in public. Right outside the building, telling anyone who'd listen, she's still holding on to that house. But it's going to be ours eventually. She must have forgotten the golden rule of nosy neighbors. Someone's always listening. And sometimes, recording. Within days I had a few voice clips in my inbox. Her words. Her tone. Crystal clear. I also reached out to an old friend of mine, Susan, a retired family lawyer who'd seen more than her share of elder abuse and financial manipulation. I told her I wasn't trying to start a legal war. Not yet, anyway. I just needed to understand my rights, know where I stood, get my head clear and my hands steady in case things took a turn. If they came at me again, tried to twist the story or drag my name through the mud, I'd be ready. I wasn't some naive old lady fresh out of a fairy tale. By the start of the second month, just as I'd suspected, the cracks began to show. Without their live-in maid and full-time bank account, me, Jason and Megan's carefully polished little life started to fall apart. The bills piled up. I wasn't there to cover utilities with my retirement check or fix every little thing that went wrong. Megan, of course, kept spending like nothing had changed. New handbags, spa days, private trainer sessions. But living with her own parents? That wasn't the smooth ride she'd imagined. Her folks were rigid, stuck in their routines. Bland food, lights out early, no patience for her loud late-night TV marathons or fancy takeout habits. Her dad paced the halls before sunrise. Her mom side-eyed every package delivery. It didn't take long before Megan stopped biting her tongue. "Are you guys here to visit or just here to make me lose my mind?" she snapped one night, loud enough the neighbors probably heard. She started fighting with Jason, yelling about feeling trapped like she was living in a nursing home. And Jason, he began to crack. Until one night there was a knock on my door. I opened it and there he was, my son, pale, exhausted, circles under his eyes, shirt wrinkled, hair greasy. He looked like he hadn't had a full night's sleep in weeks. I let him in. He collapsed onto the couch like the weight of his own life had finally flattened him. His voice shook. "Mom, I can't do this anymore." And then it all spilled out. Megan's temper, her parents driving them up the wall, the bills, the stress, the insomnia. And finally, his voice breaking, he said, "Can you just come back for a little while? Or help us? Anything? We're falling apart." And for a split second something stirred in me, that old ache of wanting to fix things, to comfort him, the boy I once rocked to sleep. But it passed. What replaced it was something colder. Clearer. Disappointment. I handed him a glass of water, waited until he drank it, then looked him in the eye. "Jason, this life, it's the one you chose." When Megan moved her parents into my home without asking, when she shoved me into the guest room like I was just extra clutter. If you'd said one word to stop it, just one, this wouldn't be happening now. You chose silence. You chose her comfort over your mother's dignity. So now you get to choose what you do with the consequences. He didn't speak. Just sat there, slumped like a man who'd bet everything and lost. I didn't soften. "And Jason, don't ask me for money again. Go home. Tell your wife this. My money is mine. Every cent, don't expect another dime, ever." His lips trembled like he wanted to argue, plead, but nothing came out. I knew it hurt. I also knew it had to be said, plain, sharp, and without apology. Because compassion, when poured into the wrong hands, turns toxic. To them, I hadn't been a person, just a well. Always there. Always giving. And people like that, they keep drawing from you until you're dry and hollow. Jason needed to wake up. I closed the door behind him and leaned against it, letting the breath leave me slowly. My chest was heavy, yes, but beneath the weight was something stronger. Resolve. Finally, I knew exactly what needed to be done. Not for them. For me. I picked up my phone and dialed Tom, the estate lawyer I'd worked with before. "Hi Tom. It's Linda. About that thing we discussed. I'm ready. I want to move forward with the will revision." There was a pause. I could hear it, the careful silence of someone trying to choose his words. "Are you sure, Linda?" I know this has been a tough decision. Jason's your only child. My answer was solid. I'm sure. Some people and some mistakes aren't worth waiting on. He didn't argue. His voice shifted into that calm, professional rhythm. He explained the paperwork, the exact legal terms we'd need to make everything airtight. After we hung up, I sat quietly on the couch, the afternoon light spilling across my living room in Bayview. It was a modest space, not flashy, but every inch of it was mine. And that wasn't nothing. I owned 2 properties. This small but well-located apartment in Bayview, worth over $300,000. And the house Megan and Jason were living in, the one they thought would fall into their lap someday. That place in Riverview was worth around $750,000 on the current market. And they had no idea what was coming. Add to that nearly $100,000 in savings, plus annuities and long-term investments. Money my husband and I spent our whole lives building. I'd never once thought it would go to anyone else. Jason was my only child. Who else was there to leave it to? But everything had changed. His cowardice. Megan's greed. The way they treated me, dismissed me, ignored everything I'd done for them. Over time, all that love, all that trust I'd built brick by brick, it eroded. And I could already see how they'd burn through it all if I left it behind. They'd waste it on designer bags, fancy cars, new phones, empty status symbols, and then fight over what was left. They probably wouldn't even bother to mark my grave. But I wasn't going to let that happen. Not after everything I'd survived. Not after everything I'd earned. So the next morning I called Tom again. I've made another decision, I said. I want to sell the Riverview house. By noon we were sitting in his office. He slid the contract across the desk and I signed it slowly, deliberately, each letter steady. No shaking hands. No doubt. Legally, Tom said, tucking the papers into a folder, you have full authority. They have no claim, you're the sole owner. I'll personally oversee the sale to ensure they can't interfere. I nodded, and for the first time in years I felt relief. Not just a breath, but a weight lifting, something deep and final. That afternoon we drove over to the property office. I handed over my ID, the deed, and a letter from Tom. I'm here to collect the spare keys, I told the manager. And I'd like to remove Jason Hayes and Megan Hayes from the registered occupant list. The manager blinked. Do they know? He asked. I smiled faintly. They will soon. Telling them would have been a courtesy. Not telling them was my right. That night I contacted a local real estate agent. Sharp, fast, no nonsense. Once she confirmed I was the sole owner, no mortgage, no cosigner, she got to work. Within 2 days the house was photographed, listed, and promoted across every platform. This place won't stay on the market for more than a month, she said. I want it gone quickly, I replied. No loose ends. She smiled. Owners like you. My favorite kind. On the 9th day the first showing was scheduled. Bright Saturday afternoon. The agent brought a sweet young couple, first-time buyers, into the home I had once loved and been pushed out of. Megan happened to be there. At first she stood near the hall, arms crossed, watching. Maybe she thought they were friends of the neighbors until the agent raised her voice cheerily in the kitchen. This home is in a prime location. No liens, fully owned. Motivated seller. Perfect starter for a young family. Megan's face went pale. She stormed in. Who are you people? Who said you could be here? She shouted. The agent, calm as ever, pulled out the signed authorization. We're here on behalf of Ms. Linda Hayes. She's the sole owner. We have full access verified by management. What the hell are you talking about? We live here. Megan shrieked. The young couple looked horrified. The wife leaned in and whispered to the agent, Is everything okay? But the agent didn't flinch. All clear. No lease, no tenants on record. This is a standard showing. Megan's complexion shifted, white, then flushed, then blotchy green with fury. She yanked out her phone, dialing furiously, probably calling Jason. Neighbors began peeking out from windows and balconies. Word spread fast in Riverview. And now the rumors were true. Linda's selling the house. The next afternoon Jason called me, voice tight and cracking. Mom? Is this a mistake? Are you seriously selling the house? No mistake, I said, breezy as spring air. But we're still living here. What about Mason? He's growing up in this home. You said it yourself, it was temporary, I said evenly. So stay until closing. The move. I'm already in second round negotiations. You should probably start packing. Long silence. Then barely audible, Megan's losing it. I didn't answer. They should have lost it a year ago. Not now. On the third week the agent called. Linda, we've got a full cash offer ready to close fast. Want to lock it in? Yes, I said without blinking. On signing day Megan finally snapped. She waited by the entrance to the neighborhood, tears streaking her cheeks, blocking the agent and the buyers. How could you sell it out from under us? She sobbed. She even called the police, screaming about being thrown out. The officers showed up, checked the deed, and one simply said, "This is private property. The registered owner has the right to sell. You're not tenants. You'll need to leave." That's when Megan broke. Jason arrived, trying to calm her, but she shoved him back. "Where were you? Your mother threw us out and you did nothing." "I never showed up. I had Tom deliver the notice. It was short. Final. This property has been sold. All non-title occupants must vacate within 14 days. Failure to comply will result in eviction." This wasn't revenge. It was justice. They pushed me into the shadows and I showed them the door. Megan had played her drama long enough. Now it was time for her to exit the stage. A week before closing she still wasn't done. She showed up at my place with Jason. It was a harsh, glaring morning. When I opened the door they stood awkwardly on the steps. Jason looking defeated, Megan hiding behind oversized sunglasses, her lips locked shut. "Mom? Can we talk?" he asked like a child bracing for punishment. I didn't invite them in. I stood right there, hand on the doorknob, holding the line. They weren't getting back in. Megan slowly pulled off her sunglasses, revealing swollen, red-rimmed eyes. Her voice cracked with effort, brittle and breathy. "Linda, we really don't have anywhere to go. We messed up, okay? Just think about Mason. He's used to this place. At least let him stay. He needs to feel safe." Her words trembled and 2 heavy tears slid down her cheeks like she'd just discovered humility. Maybe a few months ago that would have cracked something in me. But not anymore. "You're both adults," I said calmly, firmly. "Don't stand on my porch and tell me you can't find a rental. This isn't about Mason needing a home. It's about you not wanting to face what you caused." Megan bit her lip and for the first time the performance faltered. "So you're really going to be this heartless?" she hissed. I met her eyes, my voice cold and clear. "Heartless? Was it heartless when you moved your parents into my home and shoved me into the guest room without so much as a conversation?" She looked away and turned to Jason. He swallowed hard, his voice barely above a whisper. "Mom, you used to say all you wanted was for us to be happy, to be together." I nodded. "I did say that. But what you're calling together now doesn't include me. What you want isn't a mother. It's a safety net, a housekeeper, a blank check. And I'm done playing those parts." I reached to the side and handed Jason a sealed envelope. "This is the formal letter from Tom. The sale is finalized. The title's been transferred. You've got 5 days to vacate. After that, the new owners will file for forced removal." Jason stared at the envelope like it had just announced the end of the world. Megan's facade dropped. "You're cruel," she snapped, her voice shrill. "Just wait. Someday you'll be old, sick, alone. Let's see who comes running then." I looked her dead in the eye. I'd rather grow old alone than live in a house full of people who treat me like an ATM. I paused, then added, "Don't worry. I've already made my retirement plans. I won't need you." Megan didn't say another word. She turned and slammed the car door so hard the windows shook. The tires screeched as they tore away like spoiled kids throwing a tantrum. Jason didn't even look back. That was the last I ever heard from either of them. No more guilt-ridden voicemails, no more fake concern laced with manipulation. Just one short text from my realtor. "They've started packing. Looks like they've got nowhere to go. They're asking if you'd consider postponing the handover." I replied with 2 words. "Absolutely not." On Friday morning the buyer's attorney called. "Moving crews scheduled for tomorrow. If they're not out, we'll file for forcible removal." I hung up and sat by the window watching the old locust tree out front sway in the wind. That tree had seen so many seasons come and go. It now stood as quiet witness to the closing of mine. By noon the next day my neighborhood group chat lit up. Megan's yelling at the movers. I heard Linda finally sold the place. Told you no one gives away a house like that for free. One neighbor even filmed it and sent me the clip. There she was, stomping around in high heels that made no sense for moving day, shrieking, "Be careful with that. That box has my skincare. Don't touch that cabinet." Jason crouched against the wall on his phone, pale, surrounded by open boxes and piles of clothes. Mason sat quietly nearby, his small dog in his lap, just watching it all unfold. And Megan's parents, the same ones who once lounged in my master bedroom like royalty, now sat in the hallway taping up rickety chairs with anxious faces and no help from anyone. Word was they'd found a tiny, overpriced apartment in the outer suburbs. No elevator. Not enough room to stretch out. Their new kingdom. Mason's activities were cancelled. Their mortgage had defaulted earlier that month. Now they were living on credit cards. And the fighting started. Megan blamed Jason for not stopping me. Then she turned to guilt. My parents gave everything for us. Then finally, the venom, you said that house would be ours one day. Jason had no answer because when you ignore the truth for long enough, it will come back to collect. And it never asks nicely. When everything was finally done, I drove to the lake by myself. The sun was soft. The air warm. Ducks floated across the water like nothing had ever happened. I sat on a quiet bench, one hand around a cup of coffee, the other resting on the edge of an old scarf, the one my husband had given me long ago. It was worn thin but still warm. I never really believed I could go through with all this. Not because I lacked the money, but because I didn't think I had the strength. Then I realized, once your heart hardens, once you stop bleeding to keep other people warm, you finally feel how heavy it's all been. All that giving. All that silence. Just to keep a peace that was never yours to keep. Selling that house didn't leave me alone. It set me free. With Tom's help, I'd already secured a closed trust. Enough to cover my living expenses, health care and long-term care, all safely tucked away. I even added a clause for giving back. Every year, a portion goes to legal aid for women in California, especially those denied control over their own finances in marriage and family. I'm not here to rescue Jason. And I won't waste energy punishing Megan. I'm here now for women who actually need help. Life in my little Bayview community picked up quickly. I joined a few local groups, started going to craft fairs and made a friend, Lillian, a fellow widow who owns a chubby rescue cat named Daisy. We walk together most mornings. She always says, "I like the way you walk, like you've still got somewhere important to be." And truth is, I do. I've started traveling. Nothing fancy, just short train rides to little coastal towns. I bring my sketchbook and an old paper parasol, take pictures of boats and cafes, then treat myself to a slice of cream cheesecake before heading home. I've never lived so simply. And never so fully. As for them, I don't reach out. Sometimes Jason sends a short text, "Mom, we moved." Mason keeps asking when you'll visit. I write back, "I miss him too. I'll visit when I can." Because I still love my son. I still love my grandson. But we don't share the same life anymore. And that's okay. My world is quiet now. Finally, undeniably mine. That evening I sat on the couch and opened an old photo album. One picture stopped me, a younger version of myself cradling newborn Jason in my arms, smiling with this wide open kind of hope. I smiled back at that woman, gently tapped the photo and whispered, "You did your best. It's okay to let go now." I pulled a blanket over my shoulders as the sunset spilled across my windows like brushstrokes on a canvas. And I thought, true happiness isn't measured by how many people sit beside you. It's when you finally stop shrinking yourself just to keep the wrong ones close.